So, what do people in the publishing industry read, and what should you read if you're trying to get into the industry? Well, this week I had two consultations. One was with Eric, whose memoir I'm really looking forward to reading. So, Eric, if you're watching this, please hurry up, send it my way as soon as you're ready. I think it's going to be amazing. And the other one was Kamina, whose new publishing company idea is really exciting, and I can't wait to see it happen. Kamina, I'm rooting for you. You can absolutely do this. And as soon as you're ready, I will be so happy to give you a shout out here and anywhere else. So, Eric wanted to know what he should be reading as a writer so that number one, his writing would improve, and number two, so that when his memoir is coming out, he could come up with a few ideas for op-eds to pitch and for essays that he could place that relate to the topic of his memoir, which is something, by the way, that I highly recommend to anyone, not just nonfiction, but also fiction authors. And Kamina wanted to know what she should be reading as a new publishing industry professional and as someone who wants to publish books and wants to make sure that those books get reviewed and covered in not just trade publications but in mainstream publications. So with both of them we discussed some resources, and I thought, okay, it would be great to do a video where I discuss the same, and maybe this will help someone. So this time I will focus on not the books and not the literary journals, but sort of the dailies, weeklies, and monthlies that I read. Publishers Weekly. This is the industry paper that I believe everyone should be reading. If you don't have a subscription yet, you can get a good new subscribers deal. That's what I did a few years ago, and I've been reading it for 5 years now, and it's worth every penny. I use it a lot during consultations because often people will call me and say, okay, I'm getting ready to publish my book. I just need help with some of the final touches, and then they need me to help with the back cover copy or the copy of their website, or some of those sales pieces. And I will often use Publishers Weekly to show them examples of what a good back cover copy looks like before I present mine, because a lot of times, especially new authors, especially indie authors, have the wrong idea about this, and I want to make sure that they have some examples that they can look at. Publishers Weekly is also great for interviews, of course, all industry news, and really anything under the sun that has to do with publishing does appear here. Now, there are various industry factions. There are papers for each of them. So librarians have their own outlets, booksellers have their own paper, and if you're looking to get into those segments of the industry, I definitely recommend reading those. However, I personally only subscribe to Publishers Weekly in print and Publishers Lunch digitally. Everything else I will read occasionally. Mostly they're free content, or if a friend passes me their copy, then I'll read those. But really, Publishers Weekly is the number one that I recommend to everyone. I also recommend, if you're looking to start a business, be it publishing or like I'm doing, book publicity and marketing, or any other part of the industry, that you do get a subscription to Harvard Business Review, and get the print and the digital, because the digital will give you access to their archive of articles, and these are pretty amazing. They give you great advice on how to run a business, so especially if you haven't gone to business school, you do need it. Likewise, I recommend The Economist. So these two, the Harvard Business Review and The Economist, are what I read for staying up to date kind of on business and geopolitical news and all of those that kind of relate to the publishing industry, but they're not really strictly industry papers. Of course, I want to be up to date on news, and I want to see client news, and I want to see my clients' books featured. So I read the LA Times. It's a wonderful local paper. Even if you're not in Los Angeles, I believe you should be subscribing to the LA Times. If you're in LA, it's almost your obligation. So please support our local paper. Not just the LA Times, all of them, but this is the daily that I subscribe to. And I also subscribe to the New York Times. I don't think it needs an explanation. The New York Times has some of the best coverage, best journalistic work in the country, so I consider it a must read for myself, and I do read it every day. A weekly that I consider a must read is The Nation. Regardless of your political leanings, you do get a lot out of The Nation, but if it's not really your style, then I recommend the Wall Street Journal. I do like to read both sides of the aisle, so these are some that I have subscriptions to. I also have the New Yorker, and I've had it since my undergraduate days when after a class a professor mentioned, well, you can't really be a writer if you don't read the New Yorker, and I thought, okay, I ran home and I got a subscription, and I've had it ever since. The Atlantic, about a similar way. This was during grad school. Somebody said it's a must read, and I've been reading it ever since. I'm not complaining. I love both, and I highly recommend it to every writer that they get a subscription to both of these. I also love Vanity Fair and Esquire, quite different in tone, but if you're a writer looking to learn how to do great interviews, how to write great essays, how to get those bylines, these will really teach you. So, highly recommended. I've been reading the Reader's Digest probably the longest, ever since I was a kid. I always tell authors who ask me during a consultation, well, how can I get a byline? My op-eds keep getting rejected. Everywhere I submit, I keep getting rejected. I'll say, are you familiar with the Reader's Digest? And of course, everyone is familiar with it. I find that this is one of the easiest publications to get a byline in. And I think I will stop there, because if I go into all the literary journals, this video will be too long. But those were the daily, weekly, and monthly papers that I tell authors or anyone who's looking to get into the industry to read, because I think that those cover the whole gamut of direct industry paper, business paper, papers with great writing, papers where you can get bylines, and I think that's what you really need as an author. You need to know how to write, so you need to read the best writing that's out there right now, and you need to know where you can send your writing. Now, of course, if you live somewhere outside of Los Angeles, or if you're trying to get into another section of the industry, then you may have different needs, and if you have a question, feel free to post it below. I will try to answer it, and I will try to direct you to a resource that could be helpful for you. There are also a number of online ones that I read, which I didn't want to go through right now because, again, for the sake of brevity, but feel free to ask, and I'm happy to give you further recommendations. I hope this was helpful. Have a great rest of the weekend.